Thank you, everybody, for being here today. We very much appreciate you taking the time to come to Spirent. I know several of you have been here before, spoken to Spirent at other networking field days, but there are several who don't know who Spirent is, may have heard of the company, but don't know what we do. So we wanted to kind of give you a quick overview of what we do. Let me quickly go over the agenda for today. We'll start off with a quick overview of Spirent, who we are as a company, what we do, and Angus will be doing that, and I'll introduce the speakers also. We'll then also get into the feature presentation, which is talking about security testing, application performance, and also get into a product demonstration of our brand new product we launched just yesterday, actually, Spirent Avalanche Next. So we're super excited about it. We'll talk about that. And we're doing something different this time. So once we go through the presentation and show you a demo on the screen, we'll actually let all of you play with the product. So we've got these demo stations set up in front of you. There's one demo station for approximately four people. You get to actually play with the product, experiment it. It's not just us saying how great the product is or what it can do, but you get to run tests, see what it is capable of doing. And we'll do that in the second half of the session. So that's just kind of a quick agenda. I want to quickly introduce you to our experts. So we'll start off with who Spirent is with Angus Robertson. He's Vice President of Segment Marketing at Spirent. Talk about the company, what we are, who we are, and how wonderful we are. We'll then move into the feature presentation section, which will be led by Ankur Chadha. Ankur is our security expert, covers security and application testing. Several of you have spoken with him in the past, and he's very knowledgeable, fairly technical as well. So he'll get into the feature presentation and then get into the demonstration. During the demonstration, which he will show up here, he'll be joined by Paul East. He's Director of Engineering, has worked very closely on the Spirent Avalanche Next product. So he'll be there. Again, he'll also be walking around along with our technical engineering team, who's sitting right at the back to help you during the one-on-one demonstration and trial that you get to do at the second half of the session. With that said, I will not delay this anymore, and I will let Angus take over. Thank you.
Thank you, Sailaja. Good morning, everybody. How are you doing?
Very good.
Thanks for being here. Great to see you all here. As Sailaja said, I'll just give a brief overview before handing things over to Ankur. You may have noticed I got a little sun. Yesterday I was at the America's Cup, and for those of you rooting for the USA, unfortunately the Kiwis seem to be far outstripping Larry Ellison's boat. But if you're here this week, I encourage you to go see some of the races on Thursday and also this weekend. It's pretty exciting to see these boats moving at about 50 miles an hour. Greg and Ethan, it's nice to see you again. I appreciate you guys coming to our Avalanche Next launch event earlier in the week, too.
Thanks.
So a little bit about Spirent. For those of you who don't know Spirent, we're around a $500 million company, and we're traded on the London Stock Exchange. We've been around for quite a long time, and we do business with around 1,400 customers around the world in about 50 different countries. We spend a lot of our revenue on investing into new technology, into R&D. So as you may be aware, some of the large network equipment manufacturers typically spend around 10 to 15% of their revenue on R&D, whereas we spend closer to 20 to 25%. So for us, being on the bleeding edge, on the leading edge of technology, we have to invest heavily in R&D. And in terms of the areas that we focus in, we pride ourselves in being leaders throughout the communications test industry. And we try to cover all the different hot areas or disruptive areas in communications. On the top left-hand side, you'll see that we focus in mobility. And with all the new trends with LTE and, of course, 802.11ac, we're right in the thick of things. We actually certify all the handsets for Verizon and also AT&T. So this large system you see on the far left actually is used by some of the largest carriers around the world to certify all the handsets before they put them onto their networks. And in turn, the handset manufacturers themselves also use this system to make sure they have the performance, the battery life, and the user experience that you're expecting. We also have a product called Datum, which you can actually download from the Apple Store or the Google Play Store, and this will actually test the performance of your smartphone depending on the network you're on and the location you're on. So carriers use this to verify the quality of the experience that they can expect from the different handsets they're putting on their network. And it's interesting to see how different the performance can be depending on location and handset. On the right side of the picture, within the networks and application space, we have our flagship product line, which is called Spirent Test Center. And this is really the product line that's used by the largest network equipment manufacturers for ensuring that they have the best performance and capability with their products. So as Cisco and Juniper and Alcatel-Lucent, Huawei develop their new products, they want to make sure that it has the performance and capability they need in order to compete effectively in the marketplace. And a big part of what they do is reporting. So the data sheets that you see from Cisco and also Alcatel-Lucent and what AT&T and some of the large Global 2000 look at are from numbers that are used with our test equipment to validate that performance. And on the bottom, of course, I don't want to steal too much of Ankur's thunder, but you'll hear more about Avalanche Next, which is our product line for doing layer 4 through layer 7 testing, especially around high performance application testing and security testing. We also have another solution, which is our multi-GNSS range of products. And this is actually used to simulate or emulate the different global positioning systems. So Galileo, also GLONASS, and of course GPS. And so anybody who's developing positioning type technology within their handsets or the car manufacturers will actually use our systems to make sure they're accurately reporting where they are. And as I think some of you have seen in previous presentations from Spirent, we've talked about our automation framework called iTest and our lab management framework called iTest Lab Optimizer. And we integrate this software with all of our products and even our competitors' products and all the network devices that are available on the market. And this is really important as both the service providers and the network equipment manufacturers try to bring new services to market much faster and with higher quality. So typically, believe it or not, a carrier will spend about 9 months of testing before bringing a new service to market. And with the convergence of LTE and also fixed line networks, this complexity is only increasing. And so for these large service providers and the key vendors that support them, being able to reduce that testing time by half or 2 or 3 months is really key so they can get that service out faster and get to revenue faster. And these are just a few of the customers that we work with. So, of course, we work with the large network equipment manufacturers, the handset manufacturers, also the big service providers, but we also sell to a lot of the enterprises as well. As you probably realize, more and more these large enterprises and some of these over-the-top providers are acting more and more like your traditional service providers. And we actually see some of the testers and engineering managers that previously worked at the likes of Cisco, et cetera, now bringing some of those best practices to these over-the-top providers and large enterprises. So just a last slide before I hand things over to Ankur. In terms of some of the things that we're working on now, we were just first to market with our CFP2 interface. So we have a 2-port 100 gig card that does CFP2, and this is key for the service providers who are deploying next generation long range 100 gig links, and also the data center interconnect. We also have the highest density and highest performance 40 10 gig solution. So we have one card that does much higher performance, but it does 5 ports of 40 gig and also 10 gig using QSFP+. And then we actually have another card that can do either 8 ports of 40 gig or 32 ports of 10 gig. And this is important, especially in the data center market. I was talking to one large manufacturer that you're very aware of, who says they want to get 96 ports into one chassis, 96 ports of 40 gig in one chassis within the next few months. So we're seeing 40 gig on a tear in the data center space. We're also seeing virtual, I mean, of course, in the enterprise, you've seen this change pretty dramatically, but within the test space, virtual is revolutionizing how we actually do test as well. So we've virtualized all of our hardware test platforms, and they can actually be run on whatever hypervisor you prefer. And that provides some unique capabilities, especially when you talk about things like NFV. So service providers and enterprises are looking at NFV in the data center and in their live networks to virtualize all those functions that you would have a very specific hardware box for before, a router or firewall or service load balancer, and being able to chain together those virtualized services is really key. And now what we can do is actually put our own virtual machine within that chain in the live network or in the lab to validate the performance of that virtualized service across all those different VMs. And we're actually at Intel this week, and we have a demo going on where we actually have a NIC. There's a NIC from one of our partners, so it's a system on a NIC. And on that network card, we're actually running 4 VMs. And there's 2 ports of 10 gig, and we haven't even optimized the performance, but we're running 3 gig of traffic across this NIC. And on that same NIC, we're running 3 VMs, which include an IDS and an IPS. So that one NIC is actually the firewall and doing the testing of that firewall. So in terms of the flexibility you can get with some of the newest architectures from Intel and the different flexibility around the stacks that you can put on there, it becomes pretty interesting in terms of how you can deploy NFV. And finally, Ankur's going to talk, of course, more about Avalanche Next, but in terms of moving to this HTML5 type of interface that's very important for us at Spirent, and Avalanche Next, I think, is a great example of us moving in that direction. But we're taking that technology and applying it to more and more of our user interfaces. And just in terms of the ease of use, the ease of deployment, and flexibility in terms of what kind of device you can access our test equipment with, it's impressive what you can do with HTML5 and the richness of the libraries that are available. And I think you'll see that with our Avalanche Next demonstration and presentation that Ankur will do today. All right, thank you, and I hope you enjoy the presentation today, and thanks again for coming to Spirent.